Welcome to Scofield Farm. Today I want to talk to you about something that is really important to me, and it is how to save money in gardening, how to make it cost effective and not a cost burden. We've all seen the meme that says like, now I finally get to enjoy my $200 tomato, or I just saw one recently that said, I did all this work for 3 months for $2.70 of produce. And I just want to tell you that even those are, kind of a chuckle. All of us who garden know that it's an investment and it is something that we don't only do for the food. Even though I can tell you my family of 9 up here in Northern California, we do it for the food. We do garden year round and grow food year round because it actually feeds our family. And so as I can chuckle at those memes, I want to share with you different ways that I have found that are very practical and cost effective to save money in the garden, to be able to grow food and grow the things you love without breaking the bank and making it so it's just totally out of reach for people. So we're gonna start. We have 12 different things. I'm gonna tell you at the very end my most important tip, but all of these things are things that we've done ourselves and ways that we try to garden. So they're things really personal to me, and I think they will be helpful for you as well. My first way I wanna share about how you can save money while you garden and grow your own food is to save seeds. Now, when I first started saving seeds, that was pretty intimidating to me. It sounded like an amazing new adventure, but one I didn't really know a whole lot about. I have several videos on my channel about saving seeds. Right behind me, you will see there's actually some lettuce that is going to seed. Some of it is actually ready to save the seed, and I have a whole video where I show you how I save our butter crunch lettuce seeds. This is a different variety of lettuce. It's also ready, but it's really not that difficult. It's something really even a beginner could do. And when you start saving your own seed, you eliminate having to be reliant on seed stores or starts from nurseries or different big box stores. You actually bring a little bit more of that food growing power into your hands. And I know back in 2020, there was a shortage of a lot of things. Like, we all know that, right? We went to the grocery stores, we saw empty shelves. Well, also a lot of different seed companies, they ran out of stock of seeds because there was such a demand that wasn't there before, that people were interested in growing their own food. So if you learn now how to save seeds, if anything like that, where there's a breakdown in the supply chain ever happens again, you won't be caught off guard, but you'll actually be ready with your own seed bank that you have been building up to grow your own food and to be a blessing and resource to your friends and family and local community. And to me, I'm very passionate about seed saving because I want my garden to be a blessing to my family. I want my garden to be a blessing to my community. And I want to be ready to grow food even when it might be another tough time again. And guys, tough times come and go. So we want to be ready, we want to be prepared. These are lettuce seeds that are actually, you can see right here with the puffy dandelion part, those are ready to save. They bloom yellow. You can see the flowers are actually closed. And then when they're ready, they dry out like this. Lettuce are easy for beginners to save. We have lots and lots of lettuce seeds. We are not going to be low on lettuce anytime soon around here. Different herbs and flowers are very easy to save seeds as well. If you look right here, these are dried up chive seeds. And if I just crush one of the heads, there are tons and tons of little black seeds there. Chives multiply where we're at. We're in zone 9B, so they're perennial, but you might be someplace colder, or you might want to just stock up on these to share with others. They're super prolific, super easy to save and grow. Flower seeds are pretty easy. There are snapdragons right here. You can crush the head of a dried one and you can actually find the seeds inside. This is a bunch of snapdragon seeds just from that one head that I crushed. Calendula is a flowering herb that's very easy to save seeds from. When they finish up, they get this dried out parts, so you can see the seeds right here green, but you want to wait till those are brown to actually save them. They're more viable that way. If you leave them on the plant to dry all the way, they will get brown. Kind of like the ones over here. Let me show you. Those are viable calendula seeds. Very lovely and easy thing to save seeds from. And I just wanted to show you a few things in our garden that we have grown from saved seed. For one, sweet potatoes. We actually used sweet potatoes from last year and grew our own slips and hardened those off and planted them. Cilantro, dill, lettuce, as I showed you, garlic, onions, kale, tomatoes, lots and lots of different kinds of peppers. We actually saved the seeds and replanted the next year. Basil, we've grown all of our basil this year except for one new to us variety called lime basil from seeds we saved, but the lime basil is actually from seeds that my aunt saved. Loofah, broccoli, this year we're saving cabbage seeds, mustard greens, leeks. Gosh, I know I'm not getting everything. There's so many things that we've grown from seed in our garden that we've saved ourselves. Radishes, it really doesn't have to be something that you're intimidated by. Start with one thing and then expand from there every season, saving something else until you feel very confident in saving seeds. The next way you can save money is to repurpose things you already have to have a second life in your garden. Some examples of these in our garden are using cattle panel fences that we had cut at Tractor Supply. We've moved them to different formations in our garden, different beds. We've used them over and over again, so they've definitely got more than one life. We've also used tomato cages that we actually had originally got for some overflow tomatoes, but they work better for us for summer squash, and so they're getting a second life as well. There's lots of ways that you can reuse things. One of my favorite ways we reuse something was actually this garden gate. Our garden gate used to be a part of the front of our house. Our house had an in-law unit connected with the same roof by a breezeway, and when we got the house, we actually enclosed the breezeway to make a laundry room and pantry for our large family, and this gate we decided to move here to our garden. And so instead of having to buy like a really expensive gate that was, tall and full size, we reused something. And so we saved quite a bit of money, several $100s. Real quick, would you do me a favor and click that like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet? That way you can see future videos. And if you click the little bell, you'll get alerts about the next time I post a video. Let's get back to money saving tips. A third way to save money as you garden and grow food is to propagate plants. Now, my sister is the queen of propagation. She has propagated all sorts of plants for me, including roses, different flowers like guara or myrtle trees. She has propagated lavender from different volunteers she had in her garden. One thing I've did in my garden is all these chives that you see in my videos all the time. They all started from one chive plant I bought from a friend of mine about 5 years ago, and I just split them down the middle, pulled the roots up, and replanted them in different places in my garden. I've also sold them that way, which is kind of fun. Propagating by knowing which plants you can split and make new plants is such a great way to save money in gardening. My rosemary bushes, I actually started from 2 branches I broke off of my sister's humongous rosemary in front of her house. I stuck them in water in the kitchen window for, goodness, I think I lost track of time. It might have been 3 months, it might have been more. Once they had roots and I realized it, I just stuck them out in the garden. I didn't even do a good job at hardening them off. And they're big, beautiful, vibrant, usable bushes that we use in our potatoes all the time and make a wonderful herb salt with rosemary. Those were propagated plants that didn't cost me anything at all to grow. The next tip I have for saving money in your garden is, you guessed it, mulching with materials you can get for free. We've been really blessed to get from both Chip Drop and the local utilities companies big deliveries of wood chips that haven't cost us anything at all. Now that might be hard to get in your area, so maybe you would use pine needles that have fallen from your trees. Maybe you would use grass clippings. Maybe you'd use shredded leaves. I take leaves, but I would always chop them up and shred them before using them in the garden, but I've definitely used those before. There's lots of different ways that you can mulch for free. You don't have to buy prepared mulch at the store. In fact, a lot of store-bought mulch is actually treated wood that you don't want in your garden. So be looking for ways that you can mulch your garden to help it retain water and not evaporate in the hot summer, which costs more, by the way. More watering, especially if you live on a utility like we do and don't have a well, costs more money. So if saving water and finding a mulch that you didn't have to invest a lot of money in, that is a great way to make gardening and growing your food more affordable. And I have a whole video about the reasons why I mulch with wood chips, and I think mulching is the best trick to growing a good garden. You'll have to check that one out. My next tip for saving money while you're gardening is to make your own compost, to make your own bone meal, or any other fertilizers that you are able and not intimidated to make yourself. I have a video that most of you haven't seen because it was one of my earlier videos and it isn't watched very much yet, all about how I make my own bone meal, and it's super short. I'll link it below. It is so easy, a great way to use your entire chicken, or if you use turkey bones to make bone broth, you can do it with turkey bones. We've done it with venison bones. We've done it with beef bones, chicken bones, lots of ways, but we have used this homemade bone meal to feed our root veggies in our garden, and it didn't cost us anything. In fact, it kept us from throwing away parts of an animal that could be used. We also make our own compost. Over there is our little makeshift compost bin. It is very low because we just used a ton of it for planting a new willow tree and some little flowering shrubs, but this is gold to our garden. Our two new raised beds that I have videos about how we filled them have our homemade compost, which my 16-year-old son is largely responsible for right now. He does a great job at it. It was teeming with life, with worms. The tomatoes in those beds are about twice as tall as the tomatoes in our older beds. They are loving the compost, and you don't have to start on such a large scale if you don't have room. We started composting for the very first time with ordering a little tumbler off of Amazon, and I would save our different food scraps, our eggshells, our coffee grounds from the kitchen. I do toilet paper rolls, we'll do shredded paper. What else do we do? Sometimes we do napkins. I don't know, all sorts of stuff. We put in that compost, and I'd put it in the tumbler, get it a little bit damp with water, and I'd spin it every single day. And we were just in a rental. We only had 2 4x4 raised beds that we were growing square foot garden method. And that helped. It really did help even offset the cost with such a small scale method of composting. It helped feed my soil to be really quality and rich in such a small growing space. Even the compost system we have right now is not big enough for our needs. However, it offsets the cost of buying compost. Buying compost by the bag can get really expensive and add up. But when you can even help offset a little bit of that, you're going to make growing your food a lot more affordable. You're also going to keep different things out of landfills that actually aren't waste. They are rich gold just waiting to be transformed. And a lot of people don't realize the potential in their kitchen scraps or their animal bedding. There are places like Starbucks that'll even let you come pick up bags of their used coffee grounds for free to keep them out of the landfill and to help you have some ingredients that maybe you aren't getting enough in your kitchen or your yard, but you have something to start feeding your soil and making it an affordable way to start your own compost. My 6th tip of how to make gardening more affordable, more cost-effective is to trade what you can grow and what you have for what you can't grow and you don't have. Some examples of this is I actually have a video or two from the fall. I think it was actually in the winter when I made produce boxes for a local gal who was trading her surplus of eggs. Well, I had a surplus of different things from my veggie garden. I had some lemons I put in there, some different winter squash, and our hens had actually taken a pause on laying eggs because most of them were a little bit older. So I got eggs, the fresh backyard eggs I was used to. She didn't have time that year to grow a veggie garden, so she got fresh produce boxes we both got a win. We both were happy. And it's a great way for her to save money and for me to save money and use what we have to get a hold of what we don't have. Another example is I have a friend who has a lovely little pantry business, and she makes specialty jams. She has a freeze dryer, and she wanted to trade for some elderberry syrup I made. She wanted to trade some freeze-dried elderberries that she had foraged. And you know what? I don't have a freeze dryer. I actually have to buy my elderberries to make my syrup. And so it was a win for me. I got freeze-dried elderberries, she got elderberry syrup. Both of us were happy. Both of us felt fulfilled and like we had got a good, the good end of the deal. And so there's lots of ways that maybe you only have a fruit tree. You don't have room for a big veggie garden, but you could leverage that fruit you have to trade for the different garden vegetables. Or maybe you don't have room for chickens and your neighborhood ordinance doesn't allow you to keep backyard hens to lay eggs. So you have a raised bed that has cucumbers and tomatoes, and maybe you could trade some of those to get backyard eggs. There's lots of ways to do it. There's lots of ways to finagle it. But I know if you're creative, you can find a way to leverage what you have to help you get what you don't and to build community at the same time. And I'm telling you, having a good local community of people who are looking to barter and trade and help each other out, that in itself is worth gold. It is priceless. It will help us for years and years and decades to come if we know our neighbors, we know our community, and we're looking out to help each other. We can all win. We can all thrive when we work as a team. Another tip I have is to grow from seed instead of growing from starts. And I know, guys, I know that can be intimidating. There is no guilt, no shame, nothing wrong with growing a garden with starts. You're still a gardener. For years, as I was learning to save seed, learn to grow from seed, I actually still bought my tomato plants from my good friend Robin because she had such a large variety of choices of tomatoes. I mean, she had I think 200 seeds and different varieties, and it just felt easier for me. I don't know why, but tomatoes felt a little more intimidating. I was growing all my peppers from seeds and still buying tomato starts. But when I started investing in seeds myself and growing my own tomato starts, I could grow a lot more tomatoes from the seed investment than I could from buying starts. And I'm just going to tell you that if you're going to buy starts, buy them from a local gardener friend, because that's supporting them grow their garden and helping them be able to have a sustainable thing for the community. But also the amount of food you can grow from seeds versus starts. Well, here's an example. My first year growing onions, I bought those little onion sets from the local nursery, and I think they cost me maybe about 10 cents a piece, maybe 20. I did pretty good. I was pretty excited. My friend Robin encouraged me to go buy a pack of onion seeds, which had more like 300 onions in it, 300 seeds, and to grow that way. And that way, my onions were costing a penny a piece instead of 10 to 20 cents a piece. Think about how many more onions I could grow with the same $3. 30 onions or 300 onions. It's exponential, guys. Even if you fail, the loss is so much less when it's from seed, the investment, than if you have starts that die. Do it as you're ready. Maybe you're not ready to dive in and do all of your plants from seed. There is the investment often of lights, of seed starter mix, of different containers like cups or pots. There is an investment. Some of it is initial, some of it's ongoing. But if you start with a couple things from seed, let's say this year you give yourself a goal of just growing lettuce from seed. And I have a couple videos of how to save the lettuce seed, how to start the lettuce seed, how to plant them out. That is something you can try. Get some confidence under your belt. The next season, try to do a couple more things from seed. You will make growing your food more and more affordable as you go without being overwhelmed by trying to do all these things at once and trying to research the different rules. Do they need light? Do they need dark? When do I transplant? For all the different things, do baby steps. It works. And here is one point I have to talk about that is a struggle for most gardeners. Make a budget for yourself and stick to it. I know all the seed catalogs, they have bright, shiny pictures. enticing names, varieties, flavor descriptions. It could be so easy just to blow a ton of money on seeds. Or maybe it's those really pretty plastic containers that can last you years, but they really can add up and you feel like you need, your favorite color in every single size. It could be the biggest, best, brightest, most broad spectrum lights. There are cheaper ways to grow with grow lights. You can do LED shop lights. You can even do fluorescent shop lights. It doesn't have to be the full spectrum grow lights. But of course, we're enticed by the best and the biggest. And I would tell you to make a budget and decide that this is what I'm going to spend this year. And once you hit that, figure out ways either to make money to be able to invest more, or stop there and find a way to invest more the following season. We have built our garden a couple beds at a time. When we bought this house, we actually built just 2 garden beds. We bought our redwood, which is really nice wood. It's a thick, 2-inch thick wood. We bought it from a discount center that had, little imperfections in the wood, and that's why some of it's splitting a little bit, but it will last us a long time. We started with just 2 beds. And then slowly we built as we grew. I would sell different plant starts. I would sell surplus from the garden. I would make elderberry syrup or bone broth and sell it to local friends and family so that I could save up money to invest the next season into more seeds, maybe a new bed. I invested in expanding our fence. All of those things add up. If you try to have a garden as big as ours on day 1, oh my goodness, you're going to spend a lot of money. Just the irrigation that we expanded this year alone really added up. But I had a goal to expand 2 more beds this year and to add irrigation. And so I worked really hard selling things through the winter, the fall, and the spring so that we could actually have our garden support our garden. And that's something I would encourage everybody to do, is to have a vision to grow enough to share that you can actually have the garden pay for itself. I have a good friend and she bought a house that had an orchard of persimmon trees and wonderful table grapevines, and it was right at the start of a drought, a terrible drought in our area. The limit on water was brutal and the fines were outrageous, and she made a goal for herself to sell enough fruit that she would pay for her water usage. Sounds basic, right? But her water usage bill was huge, and so she ran little U-picks in her backyard. She would pick and do discounted, based on the pounds that you bought, because she had a lot of mature fruit, and she was able to pay for her water so that she could grow her veggie garden for her family, and she could keep those trees and grapevines alive during a really hard season of watering in Northern California. Think outside the box. Think of ways that you can make a budget, and if you need to expand your budget, where can you look for income sources to be able to spend more on your gardening? Another idea is to split seed orders, seed packs, or those 6-cell planters that you get from the nursery of maybe like 6 habanero peppers or 6 basils. Split them with a friend. I know that just this spring, I made a big seed order of seeds I was running out of. My favorite cherry tomato seed, which if you watched my tomato video, there's a lot of tomatoes I like. My favorite one, I realized I was really low on seeds and I needed to order it because nobody had it in town. And so my cousin and I, we split shipping on an order. It saved us both money. We bought up to the point where I think we had free shipping, but neither of us actually had enough to order to that point. And so there you go. We save money by ordering together. I've had other friends that we've actually split the seed packet with, and I've had friends who've asked, hey, if you're gonna buy a 6-pack of this, could I buy half of them off of you? Sure, there's lots of ways we can make this work, that we all win, that we all save money, and we actually get the things we need to grow what we want to eat in our garden. This wonderful chard is going in lasagna tomorrow night. Can you think of a tip that I haven't mentioned yet? I'm gonna get to my last few, but I want you to let me know in the comments below if there's a way that you work on saving money in your garden, and maybe it's one that I haven't thought of. You can help me as I try to help you, and we can both save money. Also talking about, buying that expensive bagged compost. Well, if you have to buy soil, you have to buy compost. Maybe you're making your own seed starter mix. Think about the bigger size versus the small size. We had a nice garden soil delivered to our house by the yard. It's kind of expensive, but if you do it per cubic foot, it's a lot cheaper than buying them bagged. Same with making your own seed starter mix. If you buy the little bag labeled seed starter mix, it's going to be a lot pricier per unit of weight than if you bought the different ingredients and mixed it yourself. There's just a lot of ways to think about, how to make it work, like the Costco mentality, buy it in bulk so that the unit price is a little bit cheaper. And another thing is actually grow the things you eat and eat the things you grow. This is a ton of chard right here, and we eat chard. If we grew chard in our garden and we didn't like it and we didn't eat it, that is not a way to save money. The way to save money is to actually grow the things that your family enjoys eating and then to work them into a meal plan so that, hey, my daughter wants lasagna for her birthday dinner. I like to have spinach in it, and I'm a terrible spinach farmer. But you know what subs well for spinach? Chard. So I am sure to grow a lot of chard, and I will sub that into my homemade lasagna recipe, and it's a win-win. I'm saving money at the grocery store, and she's getting the food she wants, and we were able to grow it in a garden where it is a perennial, which leads me into my next point. Focus on perennials or fruit trees or things that will come back in your area, in your zone, so that you don't have to plant them year after year. Some examples in my garden of things that we grow that come back. Our leeks are perennial in that bed. I did not realize that when I first planted them, but yes, they come back. They put off their own little, almost like onion sets under the ground and keep coming back. Chard lives year round for us, as does kale. Strawberries, they come back. You plant them once and they actually like to set off their own runners and multiply and be even more in future years. Asparagus is a perennial. You usually can't actually harvest from it till year 3. This was our first year harvesting, but we'll get to have it next spring and the spring after that and the spring after that. Also, fruit trees. We have worked so hard on our property. We only bought our property 5 years ago, and one of the first things we did in the first couple days after escrow closed was we planted a Meyer lemon tree outside our bedroom, sliding glass door. Meyer lemons are like one of my very favorite fruits of all times, and so it was a nice little birthday gift for my husband because we actually closed on the house right before my birthday. And since then, we have added like 3 dozen fruit trees to this property. They are all young. Several of them have died, but our peach trees are full of peaches this year. Our apple tree has a lot of apples, but I'm hoping that we beat the squirrels and the wildlife to it. We have lots of citrus growing on our citrus trees. It feels like every year our young trees are producing more and more, and we will be able to enjoy them for years and years to come after the initial investment, learning how to prune, learning the right ways to feed them and the right timing for pruning and feeding. It's a lot to learn, but it's something that will pay off for a long time. And so it actually makes the investment really, really worth it. When you think of the price of fruit at stores, I have 7 kids, guys. My kids are crazy about fruit. We don't do a lot of sugar. We don't do a lot of sweets, but we do a lot of fruit, and it is so expensive. That is my personal goal of a grocery food item category to replace with what we grow, to grow as much fruit as we can, and to try to multiply our fruit growing efforts every year. And I think that brings me to my very last point. My most important point that I want to make for you is when you think of saving money and growing food, you think about gardening on a budget and making it cost effective. Think long term. Think long term. Because if you think of the initial investment as only being for this season, this tomato plant, this crop of garlic, it might not feel worth it. But if you learn how to grow garlic, if you learn how to grow tomatoes, if you learn how to save seeds and plant the next year, from your own seed harvest or the cloves from your own garlic harvest, if you use the same raised bed or the containers that you bought, if you learn how to do some compost that you refresh the beds with every season, your food down the line may actually be very inexpensive to grow or even free, even though that first season or first year, it felt like you put a lot into it. Think long term. What you choose to plant, what you choose to learn, what you choose to grow, how you choose to add to the garden, you can actually make a difference right now on what your food budget is a year from now. I really love gardening, and being a family of 9, living in a really expensive place like Northern California, we're always having to look for ways to save money. If you have to save money, you are not alone. I'm there with you. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in this next video. I love having you with me. I love gardening and growing food with you.